Now, first up, Dolphins v Panthers. Let's get into this game here. And we've got, for the Dolphins, the hammer at fullback. We've got Asako, Avarillo, Farmworth, Bostock in the back line there. Nick Reamer and Katoa in the halves. Forward pack is Safidi, Marshall King, Kafusi, Finafuyaki, Gilbert on the edge, and Max Plath taking back that lock spot. Interchange, we have Donahue, Nichols, Lemuelu, and Kerr. So a couple of things in this team list that were pretty inevitable, right? So we've seen Tommy Gilbert playing a bunch of edge back row, right? We've seen that a lot. He's been sort of moving there at different times, but overall, it's not been the best for fantasy. So the minutes have upticked, but the work rate has dropped off quite a bit. We're now seeing that made official here with Max Plath earning that 13 jersey back. So this could be very good news for Max Plath. There's a chance here that Max Plath goes back to what we saw a bit of last year, where he's playing that 70, 80-minute role, pumping out big numbers. Now, do I think we get on Max Plath right away? I think you need to wait a week and see. I think just give him a week, see how the minutes rotations are, because we have seen him play 50-odd minutes when Gilbert has been in the team. So that's one thing I do worry about a little bit there. But if Max Plath comes out and plays 80 minutes or even 70-plus minutes, then he could be an option we're talking about next week. If you want to brave it, you can brave it this week, but it's just not what I'm going to be recommending here. Outside of that, with this Dolphins team, we saw a bit of a bounce back for some of these guys. So obviously the Dolphins got their first win of the season last week. Hamaso grabbed a try, scored a decent number in fantasy there. We saw Asako get back to some form, and he has been sort of rocks and diamonds so far this year. I would expect that to continue for him, but definitely a few diamonds in there. Then for the rest of the team here, Avarillo, Herbie Farmworth. So for Farmworth, bit of a quieter game from him, but you say a quiet game. He's a center who scored 50. You can't complain too much about that. And then Isaiah Katoa. Monty, I'm guessing we're getting a few Isaiah Katoa questions coming through.
Yeah, quite a few Isaiah Katoa questions. He's
there we
popping
go.
off on my radar, but yeah.
Yeah, Isaiah Katoa. I mean, what are we getting asked? Is it whether he's a buy this week? Or
it's whether he's a buy, or would you go him over some other options like Fogarty? Would you?
That's a tricky one because Isaiah Katoa is a rising star and Fogarty's sort of more towards the back end of his career. So for mine, Katoa, I had a look at the numbers and over, he's in his third season. What we've seen is every single season, the missed tackles have dropped off, the attacking stats have increased, and very, very linearly, the run meters have increased. Now, last week we saw a game where he nearly got to 200 run meters, which was absolutely transcendent. They got a win doing that as well, so that makes me think they'll keep that strategy going. Now, Isaiah Katoa, I don't know. I mean, I've looked at him. I can't bring myself to pay the price. It is sort of in that mid to high 600s area. That's the one bit that worries me. You're paying close to full price for a guy who he's doing it right now, but can he maintain it through the whole year? Can he have that running game where he is pumping out 150 meters a game? I'm a little bit less confident about that. Whereas when you go to Jamal Fogarty, there's not been a lot of attacking stats so far, and he's a guy who can grab an attacking stat. So I look at him and think, hey, he's going to kick every single ball for Canberra, right? That's going to happen all year. The attacking stats will increase. And even when they got absolutely pounded by Manly, he scored 40 plus. So with Fogarty, you've got an insanely high base with a ceiling that can crack up to the 80-point mark at certain times too. So my initial leaning is Jamal Fogarty over Katoa, but Katoa is a massive, massive pod. I'll just shout out here too, J Kid. Good to see you, bro. J Kid's one of the legends in our top tier section of Discord. So love the banter all through the weekend from you as well. Good to see you on here, man. Any other questions we're getting through here on the Dolphins, man?
We do actually. For those who held Tom Gilbert last week, now he's named in the back row. Would you be concerned?
I would say that since he's played 80 minutes both times that he's been in that role, it's not the big negative that it's made out to be. So Tommy Gilbert, my sort of scoring expectations were reducing through the year a bit. So to start the year, I said he's going to be sort of that mid to high 40s, 47.5 scorer. That was what I had him penciled in as. He played so well in round one that I bumped that up to a 50 to 52 at times. So that was the ceiling I went to. Never past the 52. Then these missed tackles got me thinking right back down to about 47.5. The move to the edge, I still think it's about that 47.5. We've seen the numbers in the past. He's not a damaging ball runner on the edge, so that's the downside. He doesn't have that upper ceiling, but his work rate's good. I would expect him to score roughly that in this game. And if he's playing 80 minutes, then you stick with him. Like you stuck with him last week, you might as well stick with him now. I sold him last week just because even though I think he is about 5 points of value, I wanted to make a move. I was happy I made a move, but if you have Gilbert now, I think you can stick with him and roll roll on him sort of scoring a 47, 48 in this game.
And now the big front rower scored a try last week. Daniel Saifidi, would you look to bring him in as a pod play?
Big Dan Safidi, man, that's one we absolutely missed on. Like I look at him and I looked at him a few weeks ago and I just thought, wow, I just completely did not pick this one up at all. Dan Safidi is one who I've had him on radar for quite a few years as one who's going to make the leap, and I take him in draft leagues almost every year. I didn't do it this year.
Oh,
And
one year.
I just sort of think like he's got a lot of talent. He's played Origin, he looks good. Moved to the Dolphins. Looking back, it did make sense because Felice Kafusi, not a pure prop. They don't have a lot of those pure props in that Dolphins roster. So we should have known that Dan Safidi would absorb a lot of those minutes. But at the same time, in Newcastle, he's had this opportunity before and hasn't absorbed it. Now, the question about buying him now, I think it's look, pod mid. If you're looking for a pod mid, he was on like 55 after 23 minutes last week. So that's a pod mid with upside and ceiling. Jerry Marshall King's a creative hooker as well. You could pod up with him 100%. If you want to do it, go and do it. But he's not going to be on my recommended list. He might be in the pods list. I see no reason why he would regress. So, yeah, decent pod for you if you want to jump on. He's definitely overtaken Lindsay Smith as well after Lindsay's quite a game last week too.
And then one final question. Would you look to pick up Max Plath or Herbie coming into the buy rounds?
Max Plath or Herbie? So for those guys, yeah, I would be thinking about it. So Plath, I would give him 1 week just to see how he goes with Gilbert in the back row. Hopefully there's no switcheroos and that sort of stuff. And Herbie, yeah, you can get Herbie anytime. Look, he's expensive. He's going to be expensive. He's not going to go past 800K. So I'm in no rush to get Herbie, but the Panthers haven't been a super effective defensive unit so far this year. So you could make the case that Herbie will have a big day here. But at the same time, we're getting so many cheapies in the back line. So my back line looks like, Rob Toya, Tamale, Kautonga, Jenkins. Like, it's all those boys there. And then I've got Jaden Campbell sort of manning the fort. But it's a very light back line. You don't need to rush to buy outside backs right now, is my view. But if you do want a pod, then Herbie's not a bad one. I'll just shout out Aaron's question here too. Hump goat to who? Yo, AFB, Campbell, or other. Tough to spend money this week, but if you don't have Isaiah Yo, then that's the guy to go for. Yo had that one bad game, but outside of that, he has pumped out 60 plus scores every single week. So I bought Yo a couple of weeks ago. I'm stoked with him. You should definitely get on Yo as well. He's a great option before the origin period. Now we'll jump across to the Panthers because that's all I really want to talk about for the Dolphins side. So for the Panthers, we got I don't know why I'm saying it like that. The Panthers.
Panthers.
The Panthers. I'm saying it weekly because they're putting up some weak performances.
They are.
It's not Penrith anymore. It's the Panthers. So yeah, 1-4 Penrith. Look, they're going to bounce back. They're going to bounce back in some way. They're not going to be in the bottom four at the end of the year. Nathan Cleary as well. I thought he was good last week. So I think it's just going to get better and better for him. Blaze Talangi coming in at 6. I believe that's an upgrade to their attack, a downgrade to their defense. To me as a viewer, that makes it more fun for me to watch. So I'm excited about that. But in terms of this team here, we've got Dylan Edwards at fullback. Our wingers are Paul Alamotti and Casey McLean. That might be a bit of a fib. Then in the centers, we've got Tungo and Jenkins. We might see the Jenkins-McLean swap there as well. We've got Talangi and Cleary in the halves. Forward pack is Leota, Summerton, Smith. Then we have Sorensen, Martin, Yo. Schneider on the bench with Papali'i, Henry, and Garner. Now, Scott Sorensen comes back in, walks straight back into that spot. There was a late move last week. We saw Papali'i named on the edge back row spot. He got moved into the front row spot. We saw Lindsay Smith move back to the bench, and we saw Garner moved into the back row spot. I thought this was a terrible decision at the time, and watching the game, I still thought it was a terrible decision. Isaiah Papali'i is one of the better edge back rowers in the comp. He played at the Tigers for a bit. Everyone sort of forgot about it, but he was the Dally M second row of the year and an absolute monster in fantasy with seasons of 63 and 71 averages. Now, I wanted to see him play in the back row for fantasy.
Yep.
But yeah, we've got that swap. So it's a bit strange to me that Penrith are so set on viewing Papali'i as a prop. I guess with their squad, it sort of makes sense to try and morph him into that. But personally, my view of Papali'i is he's like an 8 to 9 out of 10 back rower. And he's sort of a 7 out of 10 prop, maybe a 6 out of 10. Like they're not utilizing his best abilities there. So as long as Papali'i is in this role, he's not interesting for fantasy. But the moment he goes to the back row or the moment maybe there's a player swap and he goes somewhere else, hopefully he's a bit disgruntled, we'll be jumping on him 100% in the back row. For the rest of the team here, are we getting any questions about Jenkins, or is everyone on board?
Yes, we do. We have a question from Dean. Is it too late to grab Jenkins?
No, it's not too late. So look, he's made some cash. He's made about 100K. So I think it's 97K. Jumped up about 50K last week. Look, he nearly had a bigger game than that. So Casey McLean, absolutely butchered a couple of big plays there that would have been Jenkins' tries. I don't expect that to happen 2 weeks in a row. The fact that attack on that edge was so potent is encouraging to me. So I'm looking at those signs and thinking they're good. Jenkins also, he's just playing good footy. He's pumped out 170 meters plus 2 weeks in a row. That's what the Panthers want out of their back five, and that's what they need out of Jenkins. So yeah, he's definitely won that spot. Definitely worth buying. Don't feel too bad about being a bit late because he could pop out a big score in this one.
And then with Jenkins, how secure do you think his role will be for the Panthers this year?
Not completely secure, but secure enough. So again, I bought him about 2 weeks ago. Just sort of having the faith there and thinking, you know what, Cleary's going to come back. They'll be good. But I would say he has to keep playing well, right? So as far as what I'm seeing, it looks like he's ahead of Casey McLean, and pretty firmly ahead of Casey McLean because they did make that choice. But if he has a shocker, he could drop down that leaderboard as well. The other thing to think about is the Panthers aren't winning, so that makes everyone's job a bit less secure too. If they come out and win this game, for example, then Cole's out with a HIA. He may then just not get back into the team. If Blaze has a good game, or we may see McLean have a great game and Jenkins might be drop down the list, but he's good to go until Brian Toll is back in about 2 to 3 weeks.
And then with, as you mentioned, Jack Cole's out for a HGA, do you think Blaze Talangi might keep his spot if the Panthers do manage to have a convincing game?
The Panthers don't normally do that. So I'm going to say yes, but without a lot of confidence, because I think Blaze is exactly what the Panthers need right now. And I think their attack's going to look good. I think if he can get his hands on the ball and run the ball, sort of 12 to 14 times in this game, he'll be in a great position. He's also a pretty exciting playmaker. And Cole, we've seen Cole play really well when Cleary was out and be a bit of a ghost when Cleary's in the team. That combination just isn't working. It's shown no signs at all of working. And it's just not something I'd persist with. So, yeah, I think Blaze is a chance. But if you've got Cole, sell him. And if you've got Blaze, I mean, you would have Blaze. But if you've got Blaze in a draft, be happy. And if he's on the waivers in a draft, you get him. But for a classic team, I wouldn't buy Blaze just yet. But he may be an option we look at soon.
Yeah, you just answered that. Cole's a sell. And
yep.
Would you – this is kind of a question. Who's a bigger priority, Jenkins or Dylan Egan, who's playing later on?
That's hard. I mean, you kind of want both. Like, I can't imagine too many other players that are bigger priorities than those two because they're just going to pump out cash. We'll talk about Egan at the Dragons, but I think if you can buy both and you have to bank cash to do it, I think that's fine. Also, I'll just shout out Isora, who's mentioned this too. So, guys, generally the question is you want to try and focus on the teams that are on the screen there. So we'll go through every team. So we'll cover every team's questions. We do trade questions at the end as well. So hypothetical trades and all that sort of thing too. But as we go through, we just go through those teams. So any questions about the Dolphins, Panthers, Monty will be here to pick them up. Any other Panthers questions before we go through?
We do. This is an interesting one. Would it be worth holding Jack Cole for Origin, or is it too long of a wait?
Yeah, it's not great. Look, they do play round 12, so that's a positive. But it's such a long time, and he's nearly 400K. You can trade him to Dylan Egan, for example, and make some cash. Egan's also an effective scorer. Cole's no guarantee either without Cleary to score well. Like, I think that one game was a bit of a blip. I would still view him as like a 40 average for that period, so it's just absolutely not worth it. But yeah, I would be saying sell Cole pretty happily. Yo is still a good option, by the way, guys. And also, if you don't have Cleary, great buy this week. This is the week to do it. We talked about it last week as a good buy. He lost a bit of cash, obviously, at the 100 break even, but he pumped out that 70, and he was the best of the captains in terms of scoring. So, yeah, if you don't have Cleary yet, I think targeting Cleary is a good option. And a lot of teams, I'm guessing, I'm going to be recommending buying Cleary and Dylan Egan as a duo, for example, to free up a bit of cash. Now, let's roll through the next game here and just keep on pumping. So we've got Friday night footy, Dragons v Titans. And these are two teams who just look like absolute world beaters and then play just terrible footy. Like they just sort of alternate between them. And they're two teams that I really enjoy. I'm rooting for. the Dragons I'm rooting for because Gutho's gone there, and I'm a big Gutho fan as an Eels fan. And the Titans, I don't know. I love Jaden Campbell. Like, I love the way he plays footy, and I want to see him do well. But that last game was definitely not it. So we're looking for a bounce back from both these teams. Both sides had some okay fantasy scores, but nothing to write home about outside of the big Clint Gutherson. Now let's go through this Dragons team list. So Gutho keeps the fullback spot. We've got Sloan, Sully, Holmes, Tuapolotu in the back line, Flanagan and Ilias in the halves there. Then Couchman at prop, Cook and Clemmer round out the front row, Leilua, Sewer, and DeBellin. And then on the interchange, all important interchange for the Dragons here, we have Little, Laurie, Stewart, and big bad Dylan Egan. What a man. Now, for the Dragons, a couple of things to note. Tom Eisenhuth has copped a HIA in reserve grade. So there's a good chance. I mean, it's confirmed that he's going to miss a bit of time. There's a good chance he'll miss an extended period of time, or may potentially even have some issues returning back to the field. So I would remove Tom Eisenhuth from equations when you're thinking about the Dragons forward rotation. Obviously, that's really rough news for him because he's a guy who's worked very hard to get into the position he's in. So on a personal note, I'm hoping he gets back to it. But when we're just talking pure fantasy, it does lock in Stewart and Egan's role in this Dragons side. Then Hame Sele, he's had really bad luck with injuries as well. Another guy I really rate at the Dragons, but he's out for 3 to 4 weeks on his return game as well. So they were two guys who were potential threats to jump into this Dragons forward rotation. They're now sort of removed from equations. So really any questions you had about Hamish Stewart and Dylan Egan are probably gone. And Toby Couchman as well. He becomes much more solid too. So he's a viable option as well. Outside of that, there's probably not too much you're looking at in this Dragons team. Is anyone asking about Gutho before we get into the serious questions?
No Gutho,
No.
unfortunately.
Okay, I thought there might be one person sort of going, oh yeah, big score. Look, Gutho's actually not the worst pod. I think if he got to the right price at the right time, I definitely would have jumped on. We did talk about him in preseason, but just not consistent enough there. But he did pump out a big score against Parramatta. Now, far away, I'm just going to take questions. I think I know who we're going to be talking about here.
First one, Toby Couchman. Is he a buy or is it too late?
He is still a buy. He's still a buy. He's just shown he can play massive minutes. And look, the lowest that he tends to go is sort of that mid-40s for a mid-40s score. The ceiling he has is 70 points in 70 minutes. So, yeah, he could probably go higher than that too if he had some big attacking stats. But Toby Couchman, definitely an option right now. Dual position is fantastic. The Dragons need him playing in that role. And, yeah, I think he's a great option. So, yeah, you could target him.
Now, someone I think both of us might bring in, Dylan Egan. Is he a must-have, or could you wait that one more week?
Egan's exciting. Yeah, I think you have to do it this week. The cash generation is really good. The scores have been sort of mid to high 40s both times out. The role has been really consistent. So what's happening is he's coming on. He's playing middle forward for a stint, and he's also spelling Luciano Leilua as well. Now, Leilua is a good football player. He's exciting to watch, but he's not an 80-minute sort of fitness guy who's going to hold up the defensive standards that Flanagan asked for across 80 minutes. So my guess is they've looked at that and they've gone, you know what? Luch can play an awesome 50 minutes or an okay 80, and they've chosen the awesome 50, which means that our boy here, Dylan Egan, gets those minutes. So, yeah, he's awesome. Great option. Goes looking for the ball as well, and very destructive ball runner. So I'm happy with his base stats. I don't think he's going to get frozen out of games at any point just because of the aggression he plays with. And I actually think there might be some attacking stats on offer at some point too. So Dylan Egan feels to me like a guy who, for a period of time, could average even 50. But I don't expect an average 50 across the whole year. So he's a must-have. Definitely get on him. Priority number one.
And then if you were to pick out of the Dragons cheapies, Egan or Stewart, do you have a preference?
Egan aggressively, just because of the eye test. So I like Stewart a lot. When I watched that first game, I thought Stewart was really good. But I feel like Egan has really jumped off the page a bit more. You know, he's when I watch him play, I just feel like he's a fantastic young player. And look, Stewart looks good too, but Egan is on a different level. So for mine, it's Egan. The other thing is he's sort of flown up the reserve grade rankings across the last sort of couple of years and had great stats in reserve grade to back up what we're talking about here. So yeah, I'm really confident in Dylan Egan.
And then if you're confident, would you be confident chucking him into your scoring 17?
Yeah. I actually may play him in my starting edge spot, depending on what happens this week. So, well, I've got him or Kautonga, right? Because I'm saving a spot waiting for Dave Fafita to get the start, and he just doesn't, as you can see here. But, so, yeah, probably going to start him in my edge back row spot over Kautonga.
And then would you pick up Egan if you already had Stewart, or is it all right to have both of them in the team?
Both is fine. Both is fine. Yeah, they're pumping out numbers. I'd be happy to have both. I think Dylan Egan's a must, no matter what you have.
And then we have a Tuipulotu. Is he a hold coming up against the Titans?
Tricky one. When did you get Tuipulotu? My first question, because if you started the year with him, I think you stick with him. He's getting a lot of ball. That edge looks good. Even in that Storm game where he was quiet, Val Holmes scored to try that game. Right, things were opening up there. So I would stick with Tuipulotu, but at the same time, a big part of that decision is I'm sort of looking at our teams, and we've all lost Jamie Humphreys. We all have a lot of guys we can sell, like Jack Cole as well. So you don't necessarily need the cash right now. So for mine, you want to keep these guns in your team, and you want to trade out, other guys, because if you're getting E-game with one of those trades, then you've got basically unlimited money to trade Humphreys to whoever you want. So yeah, keep Tuipulotu, unless your team is so perfect that you can't afford to move him.
And then for your final question for the Dragons, Paul asks, if you were to choose one, Egan or Couchman?
Egan. Money. That's what it's about. Egan for the money. Now, Titans here. Let's go through the Gold Coast Titans. Also, I'm thinking of adding some music to these team reads, like just add a little rock backtrack. Yeah, I reckon that'd be really cool. I might do that for next week. So Jalen DeGroot at fullback. Then we have Francis, Kelly, Sami, and Fafita in the back line. AJ Brimson, Jaden Campbell in the halves. Now, guys, just imagine there's rock music playing behind this. It'd sound extra cool. Then forward pack, we have Fodawaker, Verrills, Campbell, Gillard. Jumped into the back row, we got Haas, Firma, and Randall at lock. Big news there. Then we got Howe, Feeder, Jolliffe, and Gray on the bench. So lots going on with this Titans team. Obviously, you're going to see no Tino Fa'asuali. And also, we've got Feeder back to the bench. We've got some returns in the back line too, which means that Bo Firma goes back to the back row. So there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of panic, I think, around this Titans team. Are we getting anyone asking about Bo Firma?
Yes, we do. Sebastian is. Would you be worried about Firma after his 20 last week in centre?
Yeah, good. I just want to use that as a segue to talk about him. So yeah, I wouldn't stress it too much. Bo Firma, that was probably as bad as he can go. So played centre, and they didn't score any points. Basically, they were just totally shut out of that game. So for mine, Bo Firma is definitely a hold. He's exactly the same guy as when you bought him. He just had that one game at centre. Often when he goes to centre too, he does have some attacking stats. So he can do better than that. I would stick with Firma 100%. But as a non-owner, I saw that, and all I thought was, good, dropping cash. I will target Firma in sort of 3 weeks' time.
And now we have a couple of people who picked up DeGroot a couple of weeks ago, and they're a bit concerned. Would you hold or sell? What would you do with DeGroot?
It's one of the worst fantasy players ever, isn't he? Look, he's playing okay in real life, so he's keeping this spot. And he's a young guy. Like, there's time for development. Like, I'm not going to trash talk him, but when it comes to that fantasy production, it's not there. And what we've seen is back-to-back weeks of around 80 meters run, which as a fullback, we saw Yongi scoring 20 with 180 meters, right? So you really need your meters to be up there to give yourself shots at tackle breaks, offloads, attacking stats, and all that. So for mine, DeGroot's just not a worker. Titans are going to have to rack up scores, which we didn't see last week, for him to be relevant. So he's going to need to have some of those support running tries. And I think I can see it now. Like the first game he plays well in fantasy is going to be Titans rack up a win. There's some line breaks. He runs support. He scores, some untouched tries. Maybe he has a 100-meter try in there as well, just on pace because he's a quick guy. But if I had him in my team, I haven't seen enough to believe, so I would be selling him myself. But I guess the official logical advice is that you need to make 100 to 150K out of the trade. So you need to sell him for someone that you're certain will make 100K plus. So if it's DeGroot to Egan, for example, I'm good with that.
Now, Lachlan James asks, is Jaden Campbell still a buy?
Yeah, he's a buy all year. So Campbell is a top wing fullback gun. He pumped out a 46 last week, I believe it was. Now, when we're looking at Jaden Campbell, the base stats are awesome. So he's doing the majority of the kicking there at the Titans. His run meters have gone up as well. He's doing the goal kicking, which wasn't super relevant last week, but will be relevant in games like, I think this one will be a bit more of a shootout. So, yeah, Jaden Campbell's always a target, but timing is just the question. Now he's fine. Next week's fine. He's not going to raise heaps in cash, but if you've got money to spend and you want to wing fullback, I think Jaden Campbell will be the best one this year.
And now with Tino out, Randall's starting lock. Would you consider Randall, or is it just a...
Randall's interesting, yeah. I probably need to reconfirm sort of how long Tino's out for. Do you know how long that is,
Just
Tino?
one game suspension.
Yeah. So okay, that was in a big one game. Yeah, it's just not long enough. It's just not long enough. So yeah, too short a period to jump on.
And now we have a couple of Brimson owners. I know he scored a couple tries and he's scoring pretty low. Would you hold the faith or would you look to
Yeah.
move him on?
Yeah, 100%. If we didn't have so many cheapies in the back line, I'd be looking to buy Brimson. I think he's electric, and his scoring profile is going to be attacking stats. Like he's an attacking stat guy. The base isn't fantastic, but if the Titans can play well and he can grab those attacking stats, which he has been the last 2 weeks, by the way, like it's not a fluke. He's going to score a bunch of tries this year. Then yeah, ride the wave. If I had Brimson, I'd stick with him 100% because he's gonna sort of go up and down like a bit of a roller coaster this year. And you've already sort of rid it down a bit. You might as well ride the wave back up.
And then Tom asks, does he get rid of Tony Francis?
If he's the only guy you can sell to make a trade, then yeah. But if you don't have to, I'd keep him one more week and just hope he flukes something.
And now, if you had Brimson, would you go Brimson to Jaden Campbell?
Campbell's better than Brimson. Yeah, I would be open to that. Yeah, but I wouldn't be rushing to do it. I'll just cover Dave Fafita here too. So with Dave Fafita, guys, he's on the watch list every week because when he gets into the starting team and he plays sort of 70+ minutes, he can average 60 odd points, which is awesome. But if he's playing off the bench, then I just have no interest. Like he's gonna score well every now and then, but play off the bench, he got the start last week, only played 65 minutes, hasn't eclipsed 100 run meters so far this year, so hasn't really been coming on and killing it either. Like there's just nothing. As a viewer, I'm not seeing him, dominantly taking back that starting back row spot. Now, would I pick him over Cleese Haas? Yes, I would, but he's on the bench. Just wait. Like don't get impatient. Just hope he gets a bit cheaper even. And then when he gets the starting spot, if he gets the starting spot, that's when we all buy him. Let's roll through the next game here. We got the Broncos and the Roosters. And for Brizzy and the Roosters, we's a bit of a rematch. So we had a game with them right at the start of the year. We know how that one went. The Broncos absolutely tore the Roosters to shreds. Can the Roosters bounce back? They've been keeping games close, but they haven't been winning, and they have made some changes here. So Broncos first. We got Reece Walsh, who, he's getting cheap. And then we got Cobbo, Staggs, Shibasaki, and Arthurs in the back line. Hunt and Reynolds. So Reynolds is good to go. It was a bit of a hamstring twinge, which turned out to be missing no time, which is a surprise with a hamstring. I thought he'd be out for a bit. Then we've got Carrigan, Pakes, Haas. We've got Jezewski, Hunt, and Hetherington in the back row. Walters, Jensen, Wilson, and Tapau on the bench. Now, for this Broncos team, Reece Walsh is down to about 488K. That is so cheap. That is absurdly cheap. His best score of the year so far was a 47, and it came against the Roosters. So you could make the case that there's a bounce back on here. But the issue is we just haven't seen any signs of that bounce back. And they played the Tigers last week in a very strange affair where the fantasy scores were quite low, except for Xavier Wilson for some reason. But yeah, Walsh, we haven't seen the signs for Walsh. So look, I'm okay with people buying Walsh, but it really is, finger in the air trying to guess when he's going to bounce back because he's a good player. He will bounce back. Is this the matchup? It'll happen. I'm not sure. Now, if Adam Reynolds was out for a bit longer, let's say he was out for a few weeks, then I would definitely be buying Walsh. So if news comes out that Reynolds is actually out for 2 to 4 weeks, Walsh will get the goal kicking in Brisbane and scoring a ton of tries. So that's immediately valuable. Ben Hunt would also become a buy at that point too, because he would take over as that dominant 7. We'd see Jock Madden come in as that secondary half. For the back line here, if you got Shibasaki and Arthurs, you probably think about sticking with them just because what we're seeing here is they're scoring tries, but those big scores they had for the first 4 weeks sort of faded out last week. So Arthurs, I think, was 27 with 2 tries. He's still scoring the tries. And the Roosters have been leaking some points. So I would keep rolling with those guys for a bit longer. But if you have to move them to make a trade work, you can do it. I just think it's a bit early to jump off. For the forward pack here, Payne Haas. I'm guessing we're getting some questions about Haas.
Yes, we are. Would you consider captaining Payne Haas this week against this Roosters team?
I'd more than consider it. I'm planning to captain Payne Haas. So hopefully a lot of people jump off Payne Haas as captain. He becomes a pod captain, and then we can enjoy the spoils of that. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. He had a shocker last week. Came on, had that error, the penalty early, only played 50 minutes. didn't destroy. Terrell May really marked up on him in that game as well. And we saw it was a strange game. 70 points were scored. Haas didn't have any attacking stats, and the work rate stats were down because there was so many points scored and a lot of drop ball and all that sort of thing too. So, yeah, Haas is my captain.
And then if you didn't have Haas, would you buy Haas right now? John asks.
Oh, mate, let him get cheaper. Let him get cheaper, 100%. Wait a week or two. Yeah, no, let him get cheaper. And if you don't have Haas, hope that last week is an indicator and he sort of falls off a cliff. But yeah, I would wait for him to get cheaper, 100%.
And then Hunter asks, is Shibasaki a sell if Humphreys is your only red dot?
You could do it if Shibasaki and Humphreys to Egan and a gun player improves your team, you can do it. But I wouldn't be desperate to do it. If you could also just sell Humphreys and not sell Shibasaki, that works too. Have a look at your team. If it improves your team, you can do it. But Shibasaki is one that you probably want to hold for at least 1 or 2 more weeks.
And then that's it for the Broncos. And there are plenty of questions for the Roosters.
Let me read them out, and then we'll just go straight to questions here. So for the Chookies, we have Tedesco at fullback, Tupou, Billy Smith, Rob Toya, and Young in the back line. Sandon Smith, Hugo Savala comes in at half. Then we've got Nat Butcher, Connor Watson, and White there in the front row. White just keeps on pumping. Crichton, Suo Wong, the big man himself, and Victor Radley in the back row. Then the interchange is Doc Clay, Fiketti, Steep, and Spencer Lenu. Bit of a surprise there. So I'm going to shout out a few changes here, and then we'll jump into questions. First things first, a lot of talk this week that Mark Nawani Tawase would come in on the wing spot and Dom Young would be dropped out of the team. That is still a possibility, 100% coming to this game. So, yeah, Nawa there is in the 18th man jersey. Chad Townsend, we'll talk about him in a sec as well. But for Nawanga, which I've been told is the best way to shorten the name, Nawanga, he's a guy who could step into that wing spot. Now, him on the wing is great news for fantasy. I think he can be targeted more effectively as an aerial threat, which he absolutely is. And he's going to have a few more, sort of cheap attacking stats. Also, he's a big body, loves a run meter, and we'll have some offloads coming out of the back as well. So if Nawanga can step into that wing spot and you have him, I'd stick with him 100%. Now, for the rest of the back line here, obviously we all have Rob Toya. Toya was great last week. We talked about it a bunch. I did my round in review for last round, where I just sort of go through the round. And one of my predictions was Toya to outscore Latrell. Now, at the time, Toya had 46, Latrell had 45. This is after all the games are done. Filmed it, did a victory lap, bragged about it. Then they added 2 points to Latrell at the last second. He went to 47. So I'm retracting my brag there. But really, the point I was trying to make was I think Rob Toya can hold his own versus Latrell. And, it ended up being Latrell going to the halves and it was sort of all messed up in the second half. But I still think Rob Toya is a guy that you can just rely on as a starter. And until he shows us otherwise, he's in my team 100%. Now, this game is a bit tougher. I'm just thinking. So Staggs is on the right, Toya's on the right. So he's going to be up against Shibasaki again. I was just thinking about who he's up against last. He's up against Staggs. That's a bit trickier. But, he beat Shibasaki last time. Shibasaki and Ben Hunt. He really cooked those two. And I think he has a chance at doing it again this week. So, yeah, if you've got Toya, I'm sticking with him as a starter most likely. I'll look into it more deeply, but I trust Toya probably too much. Then Hugo Savala. Are we getting questions on him?
Yes. Would you consider going Hugo Savala this week? His basement price, 230K.
He's a weird one. So his break even is actually quite high. He comes in, is it around 40?
30, yeah, 39.40, yeah. Off a negative score. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's got that 40-point break even. His true average is sort of lower than base price, right? So he's kind of got his true price is like 100K. But you can't go below 230. So he's kind of at this weird point where he's, I don't know, he's kind of got to earn his way back up to 230K in a way, which is kind of strange. The good news about that is that we can just watch him play. And if he pumps out a score way above 40, then, okay, he makes some cash, but we get to see it. And anything below 40 or at 40, he's going to stay at base price. So wait a week on him. Be smart. Do not buy Hugo Savala. Do not buy him this week. Wait a week. See how he plays. There's going to be a lot of people that make the mistake and they buy him this week and they don't make any cash and they'll be confused next week. But you're here, you're watching, so you're smart enough to know don't buy him this week.
And then with Savala starting, how do you think that will affect Sandon Smith? Will he become a more dominant playmaker?
Yeah, Ethan's spot on here. I think Sandon will take on at least 50-50 of the kicking. It definitely makes Sandon a curious hold, right? He scored pretty well last week too. So you got to stick with Sandon Smith. The question, I guess, becomes, do you start him? I'll need to do a bit more research into Savala and some of the stats there and how he's combined, because my expectations, they may have played together in reserve grade last year even. So I'll sort of keep an eye out for something like that. But yeah, I would say Sandon Smith definitely gets a boost out of this change.
And then Mark Nwanganita-Waze, would you look to move him on now?
I try to hold him. Be ready to sell him if you need to, but try to hold on to him, because if he goes to the wing, I actually really like that move for him.
And we have a couple of 50-50 questions on Connor Watson. Would you look to sell him? And if you didn't sell him, there are a couple of questions. Do you buy Watson?
Oh, okay. I wouldn't be buying Watson. Just like that 66 minutes last week wasn't fantastic, but at the same time, like, his score was fine. He scored that 47. It was about 44 tackles. Didn't have a lot of attacking plays. For Connor Watson, if you have him, you stick with him. Stick with him 100%. Because who would you sell him for? Like, what hooker are you going to target? Connor Watson's bad should I sell him game was a 47. Harry Grant's regular game was a 41. Like, as a Grant owner, I'm jealous of you, Watson owners. So, yeah, no, I'd stick with him 100%. But if you don't have him, I wouldn't be targeting him as a buy. And the reason for that is, one, obviously the non-80 minutes last week is a little bit concerning. But the second thing here is the Roosters' buy schedule through the Origin period. Connor Watson will play Origin, is really bad. So you'd need to sell him before round 12 anyway. So you'd be buying him now for round 6. You'd be selling him before round 12. It's a 7-week, 6-week window. It's not ideal. I wouldn't target him.
Now, the question of the round, is it too late to jump on Wong and White?
Oh, I get asked this every week, and I get it wrong every week. Look, I'm gonna own up. So my view on this has been, they're gonna go well this week, but next week all the guys come back, right? I keep saying that. And then every single week there is a fluke injury to 2 players in this Roosters forward pack. So Victor Radley has had separate head injuries this year. Lindsay Collins had an injury earlier and going up for a kick for some reason. And then he had another injury last week where he's done his MCL and he's out for 6 weeks as well. It's just been injury after injury at this point. So that's, what's saving them. And then what we've seen now is that Suo Wong has played so well that they have gone away from their original strategy, which would have been Spencer Leniu to start at prop and Butcher in that back row rotation, to now putting that Butcher at prop and Suo Wong keeps his spot. Spencer Leniu comes off the bench. Really, it's strange. And I'm looking at this team list, right? And I'm purely speculating because I'm sitting here with you guys looking at this for the first time. My initial feeling is last time they played the Broncos, Payne's absolutely wiped the floor with the Roosters, and Pat Carrigan had like 250 run meters as well. So they were not solid through the middle whatsoever. Their response to that is playing Nat Butcher at prop, who is definitely undersized to play prop against Payne Haas, while sitting Spencer Leniu on the bench. I don't believe that that's what they're going to do. I am near certain that they will go, Spencer Leniu, you are starting and you need to put some shots on Payne Haas. If they don't do that, then Trent Robinson will be fired next week. Like, it is an insane strategy to come into this one with what they've got lined up there. So that would mean that Butcher moves back to the bench potentially, or it could mean that Butcher plays lock and Radley goes to the edge back row spot and Wong goes back to the bench. Like, the thing is, Wong's been playing well, but the Roosters haven't been winning games, so they're not going to be loyal to what they've been doing. They're going to be trying to go to what worked. And last year, they were a better team, and Wong wasn't a big part of that. So as much as Wong is individually playing fantastic, it's a bit dicey. Now, if they do stick with this configuration, again, totally crazy, then Nat Butcher eats up probably more minutes than Lindsay Collins did. So it's actually kind of bad news for Navahu White. Yeah. If they make the change and Leniu comes in to start, it's good news for White. But if they don't make the change, it's bad news. Basically, there's so much uncertainty. So my answer every week is there's so much uncertainty. At this point, if you want to believe in the talent, if you think Suo Wong is the best, one of the best forwards at the club outside of maybe Gus Crichton, right? If you think Suo Wong is just going to keep on dominating because he's been playing really good, you can back the talent. He's under 600K. I'm going to say this, though. This is the last week for Suo Wong. Unless there's like another 2 fresh injuries. Now that I say it, I realize it's probably going to happen. But this is really the last week. Like, if you want Wong, if you believe in Wong, do it now or don't do it. That I need to look into this more, but it's that potential change in the team where if Leniu comes in to start, that could screw Wong, that could screw White. I'm kind of rambling here, but I think you guys sort of get what I'm getting at. Like, Monty, you get what I'm saying, right? It's just there's just so much that they need to do to fix this team, and both those guys could be casualties. The other thing I'm going to shout out here is that Wong's minutes have reduced every week. So he jumped down to 50 minutes a couple of weeks ago. It was 49 minutes last week, even with the injury. Those minutes are dropping down. He's historically not a PPM guy. He's playing better footy this year, so he might be. But if he's playing 50 minutes, a 50 average is very, very good. And a 45 average is more likely. He's priced about 45 now. So basically my answer is no to Wong. Sorry. No to White. No to Nafahu White. And maybe to Sil Wong.
Now, I just got to say, there are plenty of Wong and White pun comments coming
so
through.
Funny.
They
I
are very funny. I do enjoy this quite a lot. Then we have a couple other with Nat Butcher starting. Would you consider him as a pod? Would you look at him this week?
He's such a pod. He was the sixth man in my list of pods for last week's podcast, and he just didn't make the list. But yeah, Nat Butcher's a machine, so he pumps out PPM just like anyone. And starting at prop, I've kind of answered it by saying I don't think he's going to start at prop on game day. So I'm going to say no to Nat Butcher. Nat Butcher's a buy if Victor Radley had an extended stint on the sidelines. Other than that, probably not for me.
Now, James Tedesco, how long would you have to wait before you'd start considering him?
You could do it now. You probably want to be sure that Dylan Edwards is fit and firing and good to go, because if Dylan Edwards is out and Tedesco is the backup. So Tedesco has an awesome Origin buy schedule. So yeah, you could target him now 100%. Broncos aren't impenetrable whatsoever, so he could have a good game in this one.
And we have a couple questions in regards to, where was it? Hugo Savala. A draft question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider picking up Savala or Luai in draft?
I'd go Luai 100% for the upside there. So Sam Walker comes back around round 10. What's that? That's, a month away. Savala's definitely not going to play over Sam Walker. He might win the spot over Sandon Smith, but it's a bit of a speculator, whereas we know that Luai has done it before and could potentially bounce back. So he's who I'd target.
And then last question for the Roosters. How many Roosters are too many Roosters to have?
When's their next bye? They
round 11, I think, just before the major bye round, I think.
I don't think it's 11. I think it might be a bit earlier than that. Let me just double check the Roosters by
round 10.
10, there we go. Yeah. I was thinking Panthers are 11. So round 10, it means in round 10 you're going to have problems. If you've got 4 Roosters, it's probably too many. I would be okay with having 3 Roosters. I think going to 4 is too many already. And going to 5 is absurd. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be buying Wong if I was you. It's going to be too much of an issue there. Let's keep rolling through here. By the way, just going to do a little victory lap. Gus Crichton in form, pumped up his average.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm loving that.
Back.
Loving it. Now, Sharks v Sea Eagles here. And the Sharks, again, there's a few teams on this list that are desperate for a bounce back. For the Sharkies, we've got Will Kennedy at fullback, Stone Street, Ramian, Hiroti, Mulatalo in the back line. I'm guessing Moeni Hiroti is going to get a few questions here. And we talked about him a bit last week, but pumped out a big number there. Then we've got Trindle and Hines in the halves. We've got Fanua Blake, Brayley, Kafusi in the front row. And then we go to the back row with Nakora, Wilton, and McInnes. Interchange is Atkinson, Talakai, Toby Rudolph, and Big Bed Thomas Hazelton, who hasn't sort of jumped off the page like he did last year, but I expect him to bounce back at some point. Now, for the Sharkies here, backline is pretty straightforward. If you want to talk about Moeni Hiroti, the issue is that Kale Iro is only about a 4-week absence. You've already eaten up one of those weeks. He's already close to 400K. I talked about it last week on the pod and basically just said, Hiroti is just, he's basically exactly the same as Shibasaki. So 32 historical average. It's funny, it's the exact same average. Playing in a very good team in that center spot. We'll have some attacking stats. We'll have to fight for a spot. Hiroti just doesn't have any chance of winning the spot because Kale Iro is one of the best centers in the comp. So now it's too late. For anyone who's asking that question, it's too late. I wouldn't be getting on him. But if there are additional injuries in the back line, then he may benefit because he can play on the wing as well. And he's playing good footy here. So that would be what would be required. I don't like to buy players hoping that there are more injuries because, 1, it's not a fun way to play fantasy, cheering for injuries. But 2, it often doesn't work. It usually doesn't work. So, yeah, I would miss him. For Nico Hines, is there anyone asking about Hines?
Yes, there's a couple people wondering whether they should sell or hold Nico Hines, and a couple of people asking whether they should buy Nico Hines.
Well, so sell, hold, or buy the full spectrum.
Yep.
Nico Hines. So I'll answer from my perspective first. I don't own Nico Hines. He is someone I glance at every week and just sort of go, all right, another meh score. I wouldn't be buying him. I know we've got a lot of cash to use this week, and we're trying to trade out Humphreys, and we're looking at targets. Nico Hines is his stats have sort of been all over the place, right? So the consistent thing is that he hasn't had kick meters, so that reduces the base. We've seen run meters range between about 40 and 150, so that's not consistent. Offloads have been here and then not here. Attacking stats, none of them last week. Sharks looking really bad, really bad considering how good that roster is. They're not playing good footy at all. So for mine, Nico Hines is probably a skip. It's even more concerning that Trindle is also playing terribly for fantasy. So it's not like Trindle's taking all the points and they might come back to Hines. There are no points on offer right now. Even Kennedy's called off. So for mine, I would say wait for Hines to get cheaper is the firm answer there. And if you have him, it's probably not worth selling him. Like he's still scoring okay enough. I would stick with him if I had him, but I wouldn't buy him if I didn't have him.
Now, Hayden asks, is Fanua Blake a good captain or should he stick with Cleary?
Fanua Blake versus Manly, they're a little fragile. We saw a Kamanu kill them last week. I would be captaining Cleary over Fanua Blake, but I could see a world where Fanua Blake goes well.
We have a couple of questions. He comes around every year. Britton Nickera, is he a buy just yet?
He's a fun one. 2 tries and 60 points is not inspiring, though. So, no, I think he'll get cheaper than this. Even though his break-even's low right now, I think he will get cheaper, and he's going to be a guy we look at during the origin period.
And then Handman asks, buy, hold, or sell Brayley?
That's a broad spectrum of questions there, isn't it? If I had him, I'd hold him. If I didn't have him, I wouldn't buy him. So he's doing okay. Not badly enough to sell and not good enough to buy.
And then we have Fanua Blake or McInnes for their last trading spot. I assume trading out. Or trading in. I think trading in.
I reckon trading in is the question there. I'd probably go for McInnes is tricky because we talked about him last week. He had that 75-minute game 2 weeks ago. So I said wait and see. Played 50 minutes last week. He's a PPM guy. He's an absolute machine, but I don't see any reason why he would play more minutes. So if I was going to buy one of them, I'd buy Fanua Blake, but I don't think either are really targets, but Fanua Blake is the one I'd go for. Now going across to Manly here. For Manly, we've got Leha Hapawadi at fullback, who I've had a few questions about him already. Then Saab, Kohler, Garrick, and Falalo jump in the back line there. Luke Brooks, Trey Evans in the halves. For the forward pack, we have Aloe, Tavanga, and Takiaho in the front row. And Ola Kawatu and Turbo in the back row. Interchange is Simpkin, Brown, Bullimore, and Sipley. So for this Manly team, Hopewadi is the first one that I'm getting a few questions about. Hopewadi is interesting. So he's a young player, super, super talented in a very good Manly side, in a fullback spot that normally scores well. Now, that's where the good parts end. The downside is the historical data hasn't been good. So I'll give you the data and I'll give you my assessment of it. But the data is a historical average of about 39 points playing fullback across, I believe it's about 7 games. This year he's played 2 games at fullback and he scored 29 and 47. So that matches up with our 39 average we're talking about there. It's been about 1 try in 7 games. So attacking stats have been a bit lower, but a lot of try assists in those games. So when I look at Hopewadi, I just sort of see a guy who I don't think he's going to blow the lid off this thing, right? He's got, another 3 weeks in that spot potentially. He's already priced over 500K. He's not nuclear like, when Garrick played fullback or when Tolu Kola played fullback. It's a bit different. Those guys really popped off. Hopewadi's probably a better fullback in real life, but just not that fantasy guy for the fullback spot. So for me, he's an ignore. The one case you could make is that you look at him, you back the talent, and you think he's just going to improve because he's a young player, which happens all the time. So that's the case you could make there. But from my perspective, it's a no. For the rest of the back line here, Tolu Kola, he got cheap and he scored well last week. I don't really care. The way Manly's attack is set up, he just doesn't get enough ball consistently. If he scored well again this week, I might talk about it. But we've got so many cheap outside backs who can do exactly what Tolu Kola did last week. I'd rather go for one of them instead and save the cash. Then with the rest of the team here, Falalo is not that interesting. So a good player in real life, but just not, sort of a fantasy scorer. Cherry Evans is a bit weird. He's sort of been scoring pretty middling recently. I wouldn't be targeting him right now. He's going to play Origin, all that sort of jazz. Then for the forward pack here, Olakuatu's one who, man, he'd be fun to own. Like, he's fun to watch. He's not someone I'd be desperately trying to buy. So he relies on some pretty big attacking plays. And last week he was saved by a play where the game was over and he made that clean line break. And it was an awesome play from him. But he would have scored in the 30s without that play right at the end of the game where Melbourne sort of switched off. So as much as I love Olakuatu as a player, I don't think he's a guy you need to aggressively target. And I'm pretty happy with the call of, going Preston next week over him, or even Egan, for example, isn't that far off Olakuatu in scoring. I just don't think you need to reach for him. Any other questions about Manly from different players there?
Yeah, we do. Plenty of questions on Ruben Garrick. Is he a hold or a sell if you currently have him?
Garrick's funny, yeah. So he had that massive score, and everyone's like, should I buy him? It's like, no. And now he's scored a couple of 40s in a row. It's like, should I sell him? It's like, no, 40's fine. Garrick he's good. Look, he gets hurt by Turbo not being in the team, 100%. But Turbo will be back at some point. We've seen the Sharks conceding tons of points. So I would stick with Garrick if I had him, 100%. And I don't think he's probably a little bit overpriced right now, but that's not a reason to sell him.
And then if you didn't have Garrick, would you look to buy him?
Nah, I wouldn't be buying him. He's too expensive. So a little overpriced. Garrick's a guy who you get when he's underpriced. So round one, he was underpriced, priced at a 43. We sort of penciled him in for high 40s. And if he gets cheap again at some point, we'll get him then.
And then last question, you kind of touched on it earlier. Is Cherry Evans a buy or just look away for now?
He can go nuclear at the right time. So this time last year, he had a couple of massive games, 80 plus in a row. He could do it at any given moment. He's a class player. Do you think he's going to do it? If you think Manly will dust up the Sharks here, then you could do it. But I don't see any statistical case to go get Cherry Evans.
And Handman asks Ben Trebojevic, Burbo.
Burbo.
Him?
I mean, he's cheap. He plays in the back row. He plays 80 minutes. But no, I wouldn't be targeting him. I just think he's he's the same as Kautonga, probably a little bit less exciting in a way and more of a risk to play center. So yeah, I wouldn't be targeting him over the cheapies we've got. Rolling through to Saturday 5:30, we've got the Rabbitohs and the Cowboys, and we'll up the speed on some of these teams here because some of these are a bit more straightforward. For the Rabbitohs here, Jai Gray, Alex Johnson. We've got Aitken at center. Very interesting if he gets dual position again. Then we have Whiten and Tass. Halves pairing is Latrell Mitchell and Jaden Sullivan. For the forward pack, we have Kepi, Mamazelas, Tatola. Then Kaloa Matangi, Arrow, and Hubner keeps his spot. Interchange, we have LeBlanc come back, who was a PPM machine last time he played. Havili, Duncan, and Moale there as well. Now, for this Rabbitohs team, I'll flag a few things. Aitken, if he gets dual position, we'll talk about it, but no need to rush him in right now. Jai Gray, his window is limited. You could look to sell him if you wanted to, but you don't need to just yet. Whiten, no interest at all unless he plays in the halves. Tass, not that interested. Munro will be back soon as well. Latrell Mitchell in the halves. Are we getting that question?
Yes, we are. We're wondering if there's more with Trell in the halves. Is Alex Johnson now a buy?
Nah. Johnson, even at the best of times, isn't a good fantasy scorer. Like, he's one of those guys who, he'll score 2 tries and end up on 35 points, which, we saw Jesse Arthurs do his best impression of last week. So with Latrell, I think I'm pretty confident in saying this. He could totally pop off this week because he had 500 plus kick meters last week. I'd be shocked if that happens again. I don't know why Sullivan wouldn't kick the ball more. I wouldn't expect Latrell to do all the kicking this week. But with Latrell, I think he's sort of moving in the wrong direction in terms of his price. He's, close to 800K. What we should all be doing, what I'm doing, is watching that happen, watching him drop in cash, see him go back to fullback and wait for him to turn that break even around and then have a look at him. The issue is that if he plays really well, he'll probably play himself into Origin. So you then have him during that Origin period where it's a complete disaster. So if you want to pot up and do something crazy, that doesn't really make sense, but totally could work because Latrell's a freak. You can get him, but I'm not gonna say there's a logical reason to go do it. So my official view on Latrell is wait for the price to drop.
And then with his halves partner, Jaden Sullivan, would you look at buying him? He's dropped plenty of cash this year.
Small window. It's 4 weeks for, I don't know, what did he score last week, Sullivan? So let's have a look at this because, last year when he played at the Tigers, he's playing next to Galvin, he was absolutely awesome for fantasy. So he got a 37 last week. He had a try assist and a line break in that game. Had, a bunch of tackles there and 29 kick meters, So And they were a team who needed someone to step up and kick. Now, that role doesn't excite me. I probably wouldn't get Sullivan, especially not over Egan or Kautonga or Jenkins or all these other guys. So I'm going to say skip. But if he came out and kicked a ton this week, then what I would expect is Cody Walker's out about 2 weeks. Cody Walker probably comes back and takes that Latrell role, and Latrell goes back to fullback. So he'd have a 3-week window with Humphreys out, maybe more. Humphreys could be out longer than 4 to 6. So if he plays well this week and does all the kicking, I'll probably buy him next week. But if not, then no interest.
And then plenty of questions on Jamie Humphreys. Hold or would you sell him?
Sell. I was hoping it'd be 2 weeks because I would hold Humphreys for 2 weeks. Like I would absolutely hold him. And 3 weeks I consider it, but it's 4 to 6. 4 to 6 is a terrible time frame. You could make the case to hold him, but I just don't think it's a good thing to do.
And then we have people, Mamazelis and Hubner. Would you look to start them in your scoring 17?
Mamazelis is a pretty easy one to start every week. So he has bad games where he scores 35 and good games where he scores 60. 35 to 60 is fine for me. That's absolutely fine. Like we talk about, some people are starting Sandon Smith, and he's a 10 to 45, right? So 35 to 60 is good. Mamazelis is definitely a startable option basically every week. Hubner has benefited enormously from injuries over the last few games he's played. I would pencil him in for 40 points. So 40 minutes, 35 points. That's my forecast for him. Every injury that happens in the forward bumps him up about 5 points, right? And for some reason, there are a bunch of them every single week. So, injury in the forward, also injury in the back line because, Jai Arrow was playing center last week, right? Like there was a bit of a mess going on there. So I would start Mamazelis and I would think about Hubner, but he's sort of on that edge.
And then Ewan Aiken, is he someone you'd look to target this week or just watch?
Too soon. Hopefully he gets center duel. We'll think about it then. But as a center, he's not a great average. Like he's like a high 30s average in the centers.
And then a couple people, would you pick Aiken up if he was still a free agent in their draft leagues?
Oh yeah. I've gotten Aiken in a few leagues like a few weeks ago, actually. So yeah, go get him 100%. If he gets center duel, he becomes one of the best centers in fantasy, which, remember last year it was him and Herbie who were the top guys and he got injured. But yeah, no, 100% you have to go get him. Then we'll jump to the Cowboys here. So we've got Scotty Drinkwater at fullback. We have Derby keeping that spot there as well. Burns will be back very soon for that spot. Purdue at center with Vailea. Then Talangi on the wing. Dearden and Clifford in the halves. Then we go to the forward pack. We have McLean, Robson, and Tamalolo in the front row. Bateman, O'Donnell, and Ruben Cotter returns. We see Nanai still on the bench there with McIntyre, Neem, and Cohen Hess. Now, for this Cowboys team, we're not too much to talk about in terms of buy options. They have a pretty average buy schedule. So they've got a buy coming up very soon. I believe it's about round 8 there. So that's too soon to be jumping on Cowboys players. But the big thing to talk about here is probably Jackson Purdue. Do you start Jackson Purdue? I've loved what I've seen. I'm keen to get your thoughts on this too, Monty. But I've loved what I've seen from Purdue. Like he's been unbelievable in real life. Just a lot of energy about him, a lot of aggression in his running. And the big thing I'm seeing from him is he's taken the ball, in situations where he doesn't really have the right to and making breaks. So last week he made that clean line break off a dummy half run on their own 20-meter line. He's looking for opportunities. He's using that speed. He's getting more and more physical every week. I'm a massive fan of him now, and I was a doubter to start. So I'm turned around on Purdue. Is he a starter for me this week? I would consider it. I would consider it strongly. We need to think about it a bit more, but he's right there with Toya in my considerations and possibly ahead of Tamale as well. I need to think about it. Where do you have him?
I do rank him up there, probably maybe just under Toya, maybe just due to the fact that Purdue can have a low game in him. But I think the Cowboys have now, it's only taken them 5 rounds to realize that they have a gun center and that every time Purdue touches the ball, it's one of those players where he's quick enough to beat the defender. So I definitely think he's definitely up there for consideration. If I didn't have Toya, Stafford Toa or Tamale, I would 100% start Purdue, or maybe if they play pretty late, so you may not be able to loop him, but you could probably sneak him into your 15th, 16th spot.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's that guy that you bring in if your looper doesn't work as well. Yeah, I know. I'm a believer right now. Like he's just been in fire, and I guess the question is, South Sydney. Is he up against Whiten or Aitken? Whiten, where's he playing? Is he on the? I'm trying to think.
Left side, I think. So
And Purdue's on the left as well. So he's up against Aitken. That's not bad. I mean, look, he's going to miss a few tackles. Aitken's a big body, hard guy to tackle. But Aitken's coming back from a major injury. Purdue's fast as. Aitken's never played in this back line before. He would have trained in the preseason as a back rower. So he wouldn't have been, getting used to this center spot. Latrell and Sullivan are new in the halves as well. So these combinations for South Sydney are going to be a bit of disaster. I'm leaning towards Purdue, guys. That's my initial answer. I'll give you a firm answer on buy, hold, sell, but I'm leaning towards Purdue. Do we have any other questions for the Cowboys here?
We do. Would you buy Purdue if you hadn't started?
Oh, no, he's pretty expensive. Like, he's close to 400K.
Wow.
Do you think he's going to get to 500 plus? That's probably the question. The answer is go watch his highlights. Like, go watch the KO mini of the Cowboys game last week, and think back to games you've watched. And if you think Purdue's a super talent, he's going to kill it. You can go get him. But generally, I would say probably too late for him.
And then John Bateman. Do you look to move him on?
So minutes dropping off. Everything's gone right for him, and he still hasn't scored that well. So yes, sell.
There's been a couple questions on Jake Clifford as a pod play.
Oh, it's a hard one. He historically hasn't been the best fantasy scorer, but he's been red hot to start. Pumped out that 70, but it involved 2 tries. So they weren't big point tries, but they were tries. I would say if you want an outrageous pod, Clifford is looking good. And Tom Dearden's a good guy to play next to because he doesn't really kick the ball. So yes, he's one of the pods that you could look at. No, I'm not looking at buying him over Fogarty or any of those other guys. But if I was at a situation where I had maybe just enough money to buy him and I couldn't afford the other guys we've talked about, like Katoa, Fogarty, all those guys, I'd give it a serious look. I'd definitely give it a serious look.
And then last question, it's for Rabbitohs and Cowboys. Who would you plug into your starting 17, Hubner or Purdue?
It's hard not to go Hubner, isn't it? It's hard.
Yeah.
I think Hubner is the safe option there. Purdue has the highest ceiling. So do you want safety or do you want ceiling? My predicted score for both of them is probably about that 35 in this game. It's just that Purdue has a bigger sort of range of volatility. Keep rolling through these teams here. So we're jumping on to the Sunday games. Saturday night still, then Sunday. So Eels v Raiders up here. And for the Eels, we have Yongi at fullback, Adokar, Penasini, Russell, Lomax in the back line, Dylan Brown, Dean Hawkins in the halves. Forward pack is Offahengawi, Smith, Polo. Then we have Lane, Kautonga, and Hopgood in the back row. Interchanges Walker, Moretti, Geimer, and Tuiviti gets back in there as well. Now, for the Eels, obviously competition favourites at this point after their big win against the Dragons. So Eels beat the Dragons, Dragons beat the Storm, Storm beat the Eels. That's NRL this year. It's just a mess. But yeah, for Parramatta, I'm going to just talk about the relevant guys here. Yongi, I'm getting questions about him. If you have him, stick with him. If you don't have him, don't go get him. That's my answer there. I had a fantastic game last week. The issue is he had the try assist, 59 points. Is that sort of ceiling game? Probably not high enough as a ceiling game to go and rush him in as a trade. But if you have him, enjoy the ride. For the rest of the team, Penasini's getting cheap, so we can talk about him later. Lomax is not someone I'd target until Parramatta are scoring well. Dylan Brown is one that I'm going to get a lot of questions about. And I'm just going to preempt these questions, I reckon, this game, because I know what they are.
Yep.
Dylan Brown is a risky option. Now, Parramatta won that game, but they still have some challenges as a team. So do I think Dylan Brown's going to do that every week? No. But when I looked at the stat profile, I was pretty happy with it as a repeatable performance. Like, it's the kind of thing he could do again and again. 164 run meters is a little bit high, but he could go on a run where he averages sort of 60, 65, 70 points. So I don't mind the idea of Dylan Brown as a pod, but the safe answer is give it one more week and see how he plays. At the same time, though, Canberra have been leaking some points. So if you want to go with Dylan Brown, you can. Personally, I need to see him score well again before I jump on because he was really, really uninvolved and unhappy those first 4 games. And it's going to take more than one game to turn me around on him. For the forward pack here, Offahengawi is a really great demonstration of how messy this forward pack is. So he played next to no minutes in that game after being basically man of the match the week before with a try and 60-odd minutes. So that's a mess. We saw Hopgood start at hooker. Do you keep Hopgood? You can sell Hopgood if you want to. I mean, they won the game, right? But they didn't start that well. So I don't think they're going to be attached to that as a strategy. It's just messy. It's just messy with Hopgood. Look, the official answer is probably to hold him. And if you have three guys you're selling and Hopgood's one of them, I would keep Hopgood and sell the other two, right? Because we have a bit of cash to use this week. Like if you have Cole, Humphreys, and Hopgood, sell Cole and Humphreys. Keep Hopgood. But if you don't have those guys, then I'm okay with you selling Hopgood. That was a disaster of a game. But I do think he will bounce back. That's kind of my gut feel answer there. For Riley Smith, he came off the bench there and then played about 65 minutes. So those minutes are fantastic. Love that. That's sort of what I penciled in, that 65 minutes. The fact that they've named him to start here, they might do a shuffle, but they haven't brought in a specialist hooker, basically. Means that he's going to keep on rolling. 35 points in a game where he got about 38 points from defensive plays, including the forced turnover, is not inspiring. But if you can find a bit of attack in this game, then he will be really good. So he's probably a guy I'm going to start in my 17. And he's a guy that I would start over Hubner. So I've got him slightly ahead of Hubner in my team and probably slightly ahead of Purdue and Toya and those guys as well. I just think he's got the chance of that hooker spot. He won't play less than 65 minutes there. And there's no Eels hookers on the extended bench either. For Kautonga, bit of a different game for him. So not as much base stats, had the try there, but didn't have the big defensive work rate in this one. The thing I liked about it was he was forcing a few offloads out the back, and I think that's just going to increase as he gets more comfortable in this team. So for mine, Kautonga is an option that we can keep on rolling with. But at the same time, Canberra, it's Hudson Young and May Nicholson back rowers, and it doesn't matter which one it is because they're both totally unstoppable right now. So Kautonga could miss a few tackles. Parramatta could get dusted up in this game by Canberra. Like Kautonga's one who I might not start this week. I would start Dylan Egan over Kautonga. I'd have to think about it with like Purdue and Toya and all those guys, but I'm not like as much as he's pumping out these 40s. I've got him penciled in for a bit of a lower score. I think maybe a 35 this week, something around that area, maybe even a bit lower. He does have that potential, and it's just worth noting that in reserve grade he did average in that sort of mid 30s area, so he could easily go back to that here. So I'm a little bit concerned for him. Any other questions for Parramatta outside of those players?
No questions for outside those players, but there's Jack has a question. Would you start Iongi or Katoga in your score in 17?
Oh, that's a hard one. Probably ride the hot hand with Yongi, I would say. Would I? No, I would go Kautonga. Oh, that's a hard one. I'm going to have to toss that up. I've sort of made all the case against Kautonga there, but I'd probably still go Kautonga just because the work rate's guaranteed. But Yongi played so well last week, and if he brings that mentality into this game, he'll kill it. So it's going to be a gut feel. Do you think Parramatta will play well? And the better you think Para will play, the more you should lean towards Yongi. If you think Canberra's going to win, then you go Kautonga. For the Raiders here, we got Weeks, Tamale, Tomoko, Chris, Savage, Strange, and Fogarty. Then forward pack here, we have Papali'i, Starling, Tarpanay, and then Young, Nicholson, Horsburgh in the back row. Interchange is Paddy, Sasungi, Smithies, and Mariota. Now, for the Eels there, I just sort of rushed through because I knew what questions we were going to get. There's a lot of guys to talk about. But for Canberra, I think we can sort of play this one a bit slower. First up, any big questions on Fogarty?
It was more just about, for people saying Fogarty's the man. Should they buy Fogarty?
Yep.
What would they do with Humphreys? Would you go Fogarty or would you look to go somewhere else?
Fogarty's a cracking option. So, yeah, super solid, great kick meters. Hasn't had his attacking days yet. Has some upside. Could easily average 60 this year. Great option.
And then with Fogarty, would you look to buy him if you already had Tamale, Horsburgh, Nicholson, Starling? And
is there a buy coming up?
Their first
Canberra?
buy is round 15.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like,
So it's a long way away.
I wouldn't be worried about that at all. Round 15 that's an eternity away. You can get as many Canberra players as you want. They all play round 12. So, 100% you want those scorers in round 12. And Fogarty probably is going to be a guy that we do want to have by round 12. So now is as good a time as any.
And then is it Tarpanay time after a monster score last week?
It's so hard. The minutes haven't been past 60 at any point this year. So he had that game where he played about 46 minutes. Then he's played high 50s. His other two games had the suspension as well. I'm gonna say like Tarpanay is great football player. Usually heats up more around the Origin period. I worry a little bit about their rotation. So when Hosking comes back, because Nicholson's been playing so well, we may see Hosking go to lock, which is what we saw against Brisbane when they won that game and they played really well, right? And they haven't, I haven't seen anything that disproves that. So we could see Hosking go to lock and Horsburgh go back into the prop rotation, which then hurts Tarpanay's minutes a bit. It's pretty congested, right? Like Morgan Smithies has been demoted, so that definitely helps quite a bit. But yeah, I worry a little bit. We've seen Nicholson play a bit of lock as well when Sasangi's come on. Tarpanay is a fine option. He's not an option that I'm recommending, but he's a fine option.
And then Starling has seen less and less minutes each week. Would you look to move him on?
Yeah, that's what we talked about. If at the start of the year that Owen Paddy would be that future guy, and Paddy killed it last week, by the way, for PPM. I would think about selling Starling. I wouldn't be desperate to do it though, because Parramatta are a team who can leak a few points, and Starling is a very aggressive attacking hooker who's currently playing for a contract. So he's going to come into this game wanting some highlights. He wouldn't admit it to you, but he will want some highlights. He wants some big plays. He obviously want to win more than he wants highlights. But yeah, I would keep Starling this week 100%. Big chance of attacking stats, and then possibly sell him next week.
Now, Lewis has come out saying Owen Paddy is better than Harry Grant, he reckons.
He scores about the same as Grant, even with his small minutes. Yeah. Look, Owen Paddy, the 40-20 king, right? He's going to be a good football player. Still young, so still coming into it, but I'm a big Owen Paddy fan, 100%.
Then quite a few questions around Hudson Young as a pod. Would you look to get him in?
Yeah, I posted a video on the TBC Live account last week saying he'd pump out 60 plus in that game. I just thought he'd kill it. Thought he'd win the matchup there. Cronulla have been a bit soft. He will win this matchup as well, whether it's Sean Lane or Kautonga. So Hudson Young's on the left. Lane, I think, plays on the left. So so Young versus Kautonga. That's a matchup that Young is all class in. I would expect Young to have a big day here. If you have the cash and you want a pod, Young is priced at what he's worth, so it's not a guy I would desperately try to buy. But because there's so much competition in that back row, he's usually not in the Origin picture. So for round 12, he could be useful, but he gets picked in Origin. That's going to be down a fear. The answer is yes. I do like him as a pod. To be honest, I like Tarpanay as a pod. They're kind of similar, right? I just don't think their value is my point here. But they're both pods who can absolutely pop off.
Now, Matt Timico, I've got a couple of questions around him. Would you look to?
Yeah, I mean, look, Parramatta's a good matchup, but he's been sort of hit and miss. So probably not with the cheapies we have on offer. But he is a guy who can pump out a big score. So if you love him, you can go get him, but not for me.
And then probably last question for if you had Owen Paddy, would you move him on to an Egan? If you had the.
No, probably not. That game last week was really good, and the minutes have been rising, like we said. So he scored 35. I would if I had Paddy, I'd probably sit on him. As a non-owner, I'm kind of hoping that he can just take the role at some point, because I feel like he's slowly rising in money. And by the time it happens, he'll be too expensive. So if I had Paddy, I'd try to stick with him. I'd try to find another way to buy Egan instead.
And then Hoskins returning right around the corner, and Christopher's wondering when do we look at offloading Nicholson? Or would you hold him on waiting on team list?
You offload Nicholson when his money starts going backwards. Yeah. The man's pumping out scores and pumping out dollars. So yeah, be ready to do it potentially. But there also is every chance that one of them plays lock and Horsburgh goes to prop, because their best possible starting team probably has Josh Papali'i on the bench and probably has Horsburgh at prop and one of them at lock. Maybe. Or maybe Hoskin goes to the bench. Like, there's a few things that could happen here. But if you have Nicholson, you stick with him until the wheels fall off.
And then would you buy Nicholson or is that boat sailed?
Too late. As someone who I prioritize getting Haas over Nicholson that week, it's so upsetting. Yeah, I really wanted Nicholson, but I wouldn't buy him now. And we're in the same boat, mate. So we can drown our sorrows together. Now, rolling down to the Storm and the Warriors Sunday games, then we'll go through trade questions as well. Storm is pretty straightforward. The answer is yes, I'm frustrated too. I don't know how they keep scoring so many points in real life and doing nothing for my fantasy team. But let's go through it. We've got Pappenhausen, Anderson, Howarth, Leo in the centers there, then Coates. we have Munster and Hughes in the halves. Going into the forward pack here, we have Otoka, Manu, Grant, King in the front row. Then we have Bloor, Katoa, and Loiero in the back row. Interchange is Wishart, McDonald, Kamitha Mitha, and Garlic. Now, for the Storm, Pappenhausen, if you have him, you stick with him. He's goal kicking, right? Like that's fine. But man, it was an average performance from him last week for fantasy. So look, they won the game. They won well. In real life, there are no concerns. But for our fantasy teams, he had a bunch of points from goals. He had the try, and he still only cracked a score in the mid 30s. That was a bit of a disaster. Saying that if you have him, you stick with him because the goal kicking and all that is great, right? So I would 100% hold him if I had him, but man, it was disappointing. And he's had a lot of those games this year where he's sort of had a try and scored around 35 to 40. So I don't know, you kind of need one of those pop games from him. The issue is, with him, Jerome Hughes keeps going off early as well for a rest and with injuries. Cam Munster, it feels like he's sort of dominating the first half of games and then just sort of taking the foot off the pedal a bit. So for him, got that 55 last week, but it hasn't been super inspiring. And Harry Grant, just not playing heaps of attacking footy. The run meters are up though. So last week's game, there's some positive signs, but it just feels like they have too many ways to win and they're winning a bit too easy in a lot of these games, except for the Dragons game where it was pouring rain. They just didn't have anything in the tank at all. But Grant scored well in that game, right? So yeah, for mine, I would say you probably stick with these guys. Like you've made your bed, you stick with it. The Storm players, they'll be out during the Origin period anyway, so you have to sell them then. But if you've started the year, like I started with Munster and Grant, probably my two biggest mistakes with my starting team. I thought the Storm will play well. They'll run up some scores. These boys will do well. I was right about everything except for these boys will do well. But they have been running up scores. Munster's been playing good footy in real life. Grant's been improving each week, but just doesn't feel like he's playing that physical attacking game he used to play. So I think they bounce back, and I think if you've got him, you have to stick with him because when they do have that pop game, they're pods now. So you just got to roll with it. Like they've dropped a bit of cash, and you'd get nothing out of trading to Connor Watson because you're too late. Like the Watson has already got that big score. You need to get a score back, right? Like you're not going to catch up by chasing everyone else and following. So stick with them as pods is my answer on basically the entire Storm spine. For the rest of the team here, if you've got Howarth, that one's a bit easier. I would probably sell him, bring in that question a bit. He's had a few games where he's had tries, hasn't scored that well. Without a try, he doesn't score that well. His is a bit more role-based. There's just not a big work rate going on there for him, and he's just not quite as potent in attack as Nick Meaney, so he's not going to have that ceiling. Then the rest of the back line, Leo, I'm not interested in, or Anderson or Coates there. Ataka Manu is probably one that we're getting a bit of questions about. No,
I haven't seen it.
Okay, we will soon. So 52 minutes for him last week is the encouraging part. The try I don't really care about, but the 52 minutes, it's moving in the right direction. Tokamanu is going to be one that we look at in a few weeks' time, especially if he doesn't play Origin. For the rest of the team here, are we getting other questions about Storm players?
Jerome Hughes is a pot option from Humphreys. There's been quite a few questions on him.
He's dropping in price, and he went off with that 20 minutes to go last week. Like, had the injury as well. My answer generally is going to be no to that, just because he's got more money to lose. I think he'll get cheaper than he is, but he's a guy who can go nuclear, and he was the best player in the comp last year. So if you believe and you think he's going to tear them up, which to be fair, he played great in that game, that 60 minutes, but it's a no for me. But if you really have a vibe about it, I'm not going to veto it. Like, you can go do it, but it is risky.
And then after a huge score last week, Eli Katoa, did you bring him in?
He's great. The better Jerome Hughes plays, the better Katoa plays. Yeah, you could do it as a pod. He's not serious value. He's priced in that sort of 50s area where he's going to average most of the time. He does have a quiet game in it as well. So if he doesn't score a try, he often goes sort of in the 30s there. I'm going to say, again, he's like Hudson Young, Tarpanay. You pick your flavor there. Like, which one of those guys do you think is going to kill it? I'd go Hudson Young over Katoa myself.
And now Trent Liera as a pot option. He's had a couple decent scores in a row, or do you pass on that opportunity?
He had that random 40-minute game. Like, Toka Manu is going to get more minutes each week as well. At some point, Nelson Asafa-Solomona will be a part of this team for more than 5 minutes a game. Like, there's going to be, too much pressure on him there. So I'm going to say no. For the Warriors here, we got Nickel Clockstad at fullback, Tuapiki, Berry, Leotau, Pompey in the back line. Then we have Harris, Tavita, and Metcalf in the halves. Forward pack is Fisher Harris, Egan, Barnett, Capewell, Niokore, and Aaron Clark at lock. Afoa, Ford, Valmanga, and Halasima are on the bench. Probably a lot of delayed questions for the Warriors here, just because they had the bye, and there's some interesting players here. I'll go through a few of them, but for the back line here for the Warriors, I really don't have any interest in buying any part of it. I think there's a lot of good players there, so I love Tuapiki. As a footy fan, I love him. And Leia Tower, I think, is an absolute monster, but I see no value for fantasy at all there. They'll probably uptick in price a little bit, but just not enough to justify it. Chanel Harris Davida, I think it's too late, and he has some quiet games in him, and they will happen soon. Metcalf, if you held him through the bye, you stick with him. If you don't have him, don't go buy him. It's a pretty easy one there. You keep rolling with him. And then for the forward pack here, is anyone thinking about Fisher Harris or Barnett or Aaron Clark there?
Aaron Clark, couple of questions on him.
Yeah, I thought we'd go there.
Look at him as a pod option, or would you wait just to see how he plays without Dylan Walker?
Well, we got one game without Dylan Walker just before the bye, right? So I'm just going to grab the stats now, guys, just so I can absolutely nail it. So for Clark, he played well in that game. He scored well. What were the numbers here? It was a 50-point game in 49 minutes, which is pretty sweet there. That's the same numbers as Nafahu White last week, for example. You're paying $500K for him, so that's pretty cheap. He covers hooker and mid, which is pretty nice as well. The 49 minutes is not that encouraging, but he is a PPM guy. So we've seen this year that, when he's gotten 40-plus minutes, he's gotten 40-plus points. Stat line in that game without Dylan Walker was 30 tackles, 4 tackle breaks, 3 missed tackles, an offload, or 2 offloads there, an error, and 159 run meters. So far this year, he has averaged over 150 run meters a game as well. So that's good. That's really good, actually. That's surprising when you see that and then you see how Mitch Barnett's being used. It's kind of strange to me, but look, Aaron Clark, if you want a pod, I like him as a pod. He's an upside pod. He has cash potential. If you're under a squeeze and you need to get someone at that price point, I think Aaron Clark is a great option.
And we have a couple questions in regard to, would you buy Metcalf or Chanel Harris Tavita if you had the option?
No. Just no.
Simple. And then we have a question here. Someone wants to go Jack Gajeski to Leka Halasima.
Halasima is a great footy player, but that big score came in a game where he was playing in the back line due to injury. And he scored a try playing on the wing. So that doesn't tell us anything about him as a bench forward who can come on the middle. So I'm going to say no. I love Halasima as a talent, but I have no interest for fantasy right now.
And then Wade Egan. Would you consider him to be a buy soon, or?
He was a buy in round 1. But yeah, he's gone to that 80-minute role and he hasn't had any injuries. So the issue with Egan has always been he gets these random rests and he gets injured all the time. Has not been injured, hasn't had a rest, and has played great. He will probably be in Origin contention this year. I don't know, if I was picking the team, look, Robson hasn't stepped a foot wrong in the Origin arena. He's been great. But if I was picking a Blues team, I would run Coruscant and Egan. I just think they're both so creative and they both offer so much. And, the Blues have an advantage to the middle forward section as well, especially with Payne Haas and the form he's in. So let's exploit that with some attacking footy through the middle. But, at the same time, Robson hasn't stepped a foot wrong in Origin, so he might keep that spot. Egan, I would say if you think he's going to keep killing it, you can do it, but probably not interesting to me. I'd probably go Clark over Egan just on value.
And would you obviously hold Fisher Harris? You held him through the bye, so I guess you keep holding.
Keep rolling. Yeah, he's going well. He could be even better through the Origin period with Barnett out, but it's a long time away. I think you have more pressing issues than Fisher Harris.
And then final question. I think you touched on it. Metcalf, sell or a hold?
Hold if you got him, but I don't think he's going to score that well against the Storm. So you could sell if you need to. I might not start him. I might bench him. To be honest, against the Storm matchup. But yeah, he's a bit hit and miss, and I don't see the Warriors winning this game personally. Now, last game of the round, Sunday, 4 p.m., and then we'll go into some trade questions as well. So get those ready. Don't send them yet, but get them ready to go. Knights v Tigers, and for the Knights here, we have Ponga, McCarthy on the wing, Gagai, Best, Marzu, Fletcher Sharp, Phoenix Crossland at halfback. Oh, my God, the Knights. Then we got Jones, Jaden Braley at hooker, Leo Thompson. We have Cant in the back row with Kai Pierce-Paul. Frizella's gone to lock. Arthur, Thompson, McEwen, and Croker. Just a funny one to shout out. I reckon there are a lot of journalists making up stories on the day of team lists, and I've stopped resharing them. So I got sent this thing this week that said Camp was going to go to center in this game, and they were certain of it, and blah blah blah. Look at this. He's not.
Still
He's not
there.
at center. Yeah, yeah. So I think you just can't really. All these speculations, it happened with Blaze Talangi a few weeks ago. I reshared one of them and I had to retract it. Like, I'm just sort of thinking a lot of the speculation stuff, you can't trust it, guys. But for the Knights here, fantasy implications. Let's go through them. So McCarthy is pretty damn cheap from memory, but I just don't see him being in there long enough. It was a HIA, obviously, to Schiller. So 350K, it's not even that cheap. He's a firm skip for mine. For the backline here, if you've got Braden Best, Greg Marzu, they scored in the high 30s there. They're fine to hold. They just didn't have an attacking day. They were held to nil. I think, if anything, those scores were better than what I'd expect from the Knights backline in games where they didn't score well. Fletcher Sharp is one that I was pretty impressed by. He didn't have much running at all, but just pure base there, pumped out a high 30s score. That was great. Look, he's pretty expensive, so he's not someone I'm targeting, but he was better than I thought he'd be from watching the game because he made 28 tackles like that. Yeah. Kellen Ponga, how many questions do we have asking hold or sell Ponga?
Plenty.
Yep.
People are.
Do we have more than the number of points he scored on the weekend?
Oh, I reckon it'll be very close. Very close.
Yeah. Look, back-to-back sub-30s for Ponga. That's brutal. Nothing about Kellen Ponga indicates that he's going to keep that going. The issue is that in that game last week, he found himself in first receiver quite a bit, and that's been working for him when they've been winning, but it did not work for him in that game, and didn't work for him in the Titans game either, because he ends up, sort of passing the ball on, doing a lot of, midfield kickings, not even big kick meters, like 1 point per kick. Like, they're just not using him correctly. Now, the fact that they've gone Phoenix Crossland to half tells me that they've seen that problem as well, and they're fixing it. So if you have Ponga, I'd stick with him. If you don't have Ponga, again, it's awkward because we're heading towards the origin period, but he's going to get cheap and become kind of interesting because if he gets into the 600s, I'm looking at buying. But if you have him, hold him. I think he has a nuclear score in this game, and I think he'll be pretty embarrassed by how thoroughly they were shut down last week. We also saw the Tigers concede nearly 50. So, yeah, I think Ponga will be good to hold. Crossland, no interest. Brayley with Matt Arthur on the bench because Arthur is a hooker that they got from Parramatta. Parramatta geniusly gave him over and didn't seek a player swap, but that's neither here nor there. For Brayley, I mean, what's Brayley's price? He's in the high 300s from memory, I think. So let me just double check that price. Yeah, so 408K. He's dropped another 100K. Look, Brayley hasn't been getting minutes at all. So he's had, 93 points across 4 games in 157 minutes. Brayley's a guy who, if he gets 80 minutes play, scores about that 50 to 52. With Matt Arthur on the bench and with the fact that Brayley's leaving the club at the end of the year, I would expect less minutes than that, maybe a 50 minutes a game, maybe 60, maybe as high as 65 even. But for mine, I don't think you can get Brayley unless we see the Knights win this game and we see him play 65 plus minutes. I need to see those things. Otherwise, they might just swap again next week. Newcastle love making a change. So I'm going to say wait a week on Brayley. You can afford to. His break-even's quite high. Are we getting some Thomas Cant owners celebrating and running victory laps here?
Yes, we do. We have people celebrating.
Nice.
People asking whether Thomas Cant's still a buy.
So Thomas Cant owners experienced the lowest of lows in that game when Schiller went off with a HIA in the second minute and he moved to center because his one other game he played NRL at center, he scored 25. So I remember in the live game chat just saying, guys, just pencil him in for a 35 and detach emotionally. He was on 1 point after 25 minutes. He was not going well. 3 forced turnovers and a big defensive work rate. They ran a lot of ball at him. He handled all of it. That's good and bad news. The good news is he's obviously moved up the pecking order at Newcastle, and they know what they have. They already know he's the captain of their reserve grade team, but he's an absolute weapon. The downside is that he's capable of backing up at center, and he now becomes the guy who potentially backs up at center full time. You also have Dylan Lucas who does that role, but Cant might surpass him. I mean, Lucas is a better attacking player. Cant really locked it down in defense. So if you don't have Cant, as it stands, it's probably going to be another 3 weeks without Dylan Lucas. A 3-week window for a guy who, averages about 50 in reserve grade. pumped out that big score. He played well again. It's a real speculator. I don't mind Thomas Cant as an option, but it has to all go perfectly. And if there's another injury in the back line, then you're kind of stuffed. Like it puts you in a really tough situation. So I would say yes at that mid 500s. You can go get him and he'll score well for a few weeks. He'll make you some cash and he'll be a nice bridge player to someone else. And he might potentially hold some sort of spot longer term. Maybe move to lock or something like that as well. So I'm going to say yes to Thomas Kent. Pretty firm yes, but just keep an eye on any news about Dylan Lucas because I'll try to find out if he's ahead of schedule, behind schedule. If he's ahead of schedule, then I'm going to say no. Any other questions for Knights here?
We do. You said you look to hold Ponga. Would you hold Greg Marju as well?
I sold Marzu a couple of weeks ago before the buy just because it allowed me to go to Isaiah Yo. So that was a nice little trade actually. But yeah, I would probably stick with him. I think they'll play better in this game. The Tigers have leaked some points. Like I would hold Greg Marzu for this game, and they have a good buy schedule as well. So hold him until the wheels fall off, or until you have a trade that demands it. Basically,
Would you go to Kai Pearce Paul now that he's back from suspension?
nah, he's okay. He's probably a little bit more value, but he's just not as good a scorer as a lot of the guys we've talked about in the back row. So I'm going to say no, but if you love him, you love him and you can do it.
And then coming off a big score, playing big minutes, Leo Thompson. Would you look to buy him this week or?
They need him to play big minutes because they've got some injuries now. So Safidi is out with a calf injury. You could do it. He's pretty pricey for what he is. He's definitely value, but not a priority for me. If you need the middle forward spot, he's a pod that can pop off. Has some attacking stats in him too. So I don't hate the idea.
And then last night's question: would you buy Crossland this week?
No. Nah. He was fine at hooker. He's not a great scorer in the halves either, so I'd skip him. And Tigers here, we have Buller, Taruva, Dwayhe, Toa, and Skelton in the back line. We have Galvin and Luai in the halves. Forward pack, we've got Terrell May, Appy Coruscant, Fanua Pole. Then we've got Finu, Seyfarth, and Twal. Going to the interchange, we have De Silva, Hunt, Bird, and Finu as well. Now, for the Tigers here, backline, obviously worth noting that Jarrell Skelton is back into the team. Jerome Luai is as well. My thoughts here on this backline are one, Stafford Toa. What a man, what a legend. 3 tries in the last 2 games. It's not going to be like that all year. Do not expect him to average 50 for the rest of the year. He's still like a high 30s kind of guy. We penciled him in for that 39. I see him going back to that. Do you start Toa in this matchup? For the next question. Potentially. Look, Pierce Ball is back, so their defensive config is going to be a bit cleaner. Cogger was missing a few tackles. Crossland's probably a more solid defender there as well. Gagai and Best. So I'm just thinking Stafford Toa plays on the right, Best plays on the left. He's up against Brad and Best. Crichton scored sweet F all against Best last week, but Crichton's not the best scorer. I think Best will win this matchup here between the two of them. Stafford Toa is one that I probably I'll think about it more deeply as we go into the round, but I'm very strongly considering benching him, even with the great form recently. I just think that Brad and Best will win that matchup, and there could be some missed tackles on off of Stafford Toa this week. For Jerome Luai, wait till he gets cheap, and then we're going to buy him at 400K because he will bounce back at some point, and that running game will come out at some point, but it's MIA so far this year. For the forward pack here, Terrell May is still a super viable captain option, and he always is. My view on captains personally is I'm going between Terrell May, Payne Haas, and Nathan Cleary. Where do I see a narrative that I like? Payne Haas scored the worst out of the 3, but he is my captain this week. I'm fairly certain of that. I'll think about it more. Terrell May is a fine option as well. The 70 minutes last week is encouraging because his minutes are going above that 65 we saw, so that's moving in the right direction. But I think Haas has some attacking upside in this Roosters game, so he's where I'm leaning. But even Nathan Cleary, he's got a good matchup too. So if you like Terrell May, you like Terrell May, but it's between those 3. No one in the world has the answer, by the way. If anyone's telling you they do know who to captain, get them to send you screenshots of their last 5 games, and they better get it exactly right because I reckon it's been tough to predict so far, and you kind of got to go with your vibes there. But the forward pack here, look, Coruscant is going to get cheap at some point too. Not playing 80 minutes or even really close to it at this point, but he's in a very exciting attacking hooker. Gets back to 80 minutes, could be interesting. And yeah, Seyfarth. Are we getting people asking about selling him?
Yeah. Is Seyfarth okay to sell? Would you look to hold him? It's very 50-50.
Yeah, you could sell him. You could hold him. He's like one of those guys where we were talking about it before. If you have Jack Cole and Jamie Humphries and Alex Seyfarth, you sell Jack Cole and Jamie Humphries. But if you don't have Cole, maybe, then I would be open to selling Seyfarth. There's also some good trades you could do. So you could go Seyfarth and Humphries out for a top tier gun and Egan, for example. So I'd be open to selling Seyfarth, but I wouldn't be desperately trying to do it.
Then we have a question on Dream Buller.
Mm.
Is any love for him?
Dream Buller, no, not really. He'd need to get really cheap for me to be interested.
And then obviously Terrell May. If you don't have him, you got to get him right. I'm not sure if Vegemite Toast, this was a joke comment.
Vegemite Toast? I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you. This better be your first episode you've tuned into. Terrell, mate, yeah, must have. Go get him. I think he's still worth buying at the price he's at, which is pretty crazy to say. But yeah, he's a must have 100%. Now, let's jump into some trade questions here. So, mate, fire away. I'll just pick a team to sit on with our little view here.
Alrighty. So, first question here. Jaden Campbell or Ponga? They don't have any guns in their wing fullback slots.
Jaden Campbell or Ponga? It's got to be Campbell for the base stats there. So Campbell's had some games where he's been pretty quiet, still scored 40 plus. Ponga's gone consecutive sub 30s in a row. So I would go Campbell 100%.
And then Dan would like you to rank Fafita, Couchman, Wong, or Can't to bring in this week.
Definitely not Fafita. Couchman is probably the best player of the group, but Wong has shown a ceiling that Couchman hasn't shown, and Cant has shown that ceiling as well. So probably Couchman is number one, I would say, of that group, just because he has the role, whereas Fafita, Wong, and Cant are all a bit uncertain about the role. So I would go Couchman.
A-Dog asks, Hump to Fogarty, Grant to Teddy.
I think Grant to Teddy is not the best trade. I'd probably keep Grant in that trade and just do Hump to Fogarty if you can.
Preston or Couchman next week or Wong this week?
If that's the toss up, then you might. I wouldn't wait for Preston necessarily. I don't mind the idea of going Wong this week. You can't go Wong with Sewer. Yeah, no, I don't mind that trade, but I'd probably. It's between Wong and Couchman for me. Have a think about Wong. Whatever you do with your trade, just keep it reversible. So the player you trade for Wong, make sure you can reverse the trade if there's a late change, because I think there's going to be a late change. It could affect Wong, but I like Wong if he keeps the starting spot and plays big minutes.
Now, would you sell Seyfarth or Hopgood to get Yo?
Yes, is the first part. Seyfarth, 100%.
I think this is a slam dunk trade. Humphries to Cleary and Cole to Egan.
Beautiful.
And then we have a couple. Is Jack Cole a sell? And if so, to Hamish Stewart? Or would you go Egan?
Hamish Stewart's, not the guy. Egan's the one to get. There are other options as well, but I would get Egan over Stewart.
Is it worth bringing in your boy Angus Crichton this week?
Ooh, he's playing good, but the Roosters have a terrible bye schedule through the Origin period. He will play Origin, so I'm going to say no.
Who's a better buy, Egan or Jenkins?
That's hard. If you think the Panthers will win this week, then possibly Jenkins. But if you think the Panthers will lose, then go Egan. I'm going to split them. But they're both. I think I'd go for both of them over whoever else you're thinking about.
And then Parent asks, do I start Dylan Egan, Hubner, Toya, or Mamazelis for their last bench spot?
Mamazelis, I would say. Yeah. He's just got a great floor and he's got a pretty high ceiling. So yeah, Mamazelis is the guy there, then probably Egan, second place.
Humphries to Herbie Farnworth.
Yeah, that works. He's a big pod. Herbie can go 100 plus. Like, he's been pretty safe and consistent, but he has that 100 plus game in him when he scores some tries.
And now Mitchell's got 735k to spend on any player in looking to go Gus Crichton, Bradman Best, or Val.
I don't really like any of them that much. Best is exciting. Best has that big ceiling. Gus, obviously, the Origin schedule is not good, and Val, bit hit and miss. Will be around Origin as well. I'd probably go Brad and Best if I was buying one of them.
And then locked up asks, I need to start 3 players out of Purdue, Tamale, Toya, Jenkins, and Kautoga.
I'd go Jenkins. I mean, this is the toss up I'm going to have this week. And full transparency, I haven't thought about it deeply yet.
Yep.
Think about it on Thursday normally. By the way, guys, actually, it's probably a good segue. If you do want answers to these types of questions, like those start sit questions, we have in the Discord. The private section, I'll add my rankings for cheapies. So usually we'll just jump in. So yeah, if you jump in, link is in the description of this. It's wap.com/casual athlete. But I'll share my cheapie rankings, right? So I'll post things like this, my cheapie ranks, sort of range of scores, what I'm expecting for players. And then you can sort of work off those. Go with your gut feel as well. But that's in the Discord there. Link is in the description. Jump in there. Also, we have Rate My Team tomorrow. So if you do sign up, you'll get your team advice and team rating included in that video tomorrow too. So great option to have. And if you do jump on to the gun or mid-ranger sections, which I've seen a few of you have jumped on already during this video, you get to join a private call with a bunch of us there tomorrow night, where we talk through all of our different fantasy teams.
And then Hunter asks, does he do Hopgood to Couchman and Humphreys to Fogarty, or Hopgood to Egan and Humphreys to Jaden Campbell?
I like the first option better. Hopgood to Couchman, Humphreys to Fogarty.
You and Aiken a buy, or would you wait a couple of weeks just to see how it plays out?
Wait some time. He's playing center. I expect him to score in the high 30s. So he'll drop cash. Hopefully he gets dual position and goes back to the back row. And that's the point where we will buy him 100%.
And then we have Arthurs and Humphreys for Yo and Egan.
Yeah. These are good trades. Yeah, really good.
And then we have Seyfarth and Humphreys to Egan, Herbie, Fogarty, or Couchman.
So Egan obviously locked in there. Then, I mean, they're all good options. Herbie positionally is the biggest advantage. Fogarty's really safe as well. Couchman's probably the value option out of the 3. I'm okay with any of them if I'm being completely transparent. Like, it's going to be based on your vibes there. Like, what do you want there? Herbie has the biggest ceiling out of all of them. So if you want a guy who can pop out 100 plus, go for Herbie. Fogarty is really safe. And then Couchman has that dual position forward cover. If you need that, go for him. But I'm probably leaning towards Herbie or Fogarty, depending on how your team's set up.
Then we have, I assume, Isaiah Katoa or Hines from Humphreys. You pick one.
Katoa's the guy doing it this year. Hines is the guy who's done it before. Probably I've got, all right, if it was my team, I skew towards names and guys who have done it before. So I would look at Hines, and the narrative that I would make up here, this isn't me, by the way, no one listen to this and just go by Hines, but the story I would tell myself is Cronulla have been losing games and haven't looked inspiring in attack. Nico Hines hasn't been a dominant half. They're going to turn things around by leaning on Nico Hines even more. And the only way they're going to win the comp this year is if Nico Hines plays at a Dally M level. He's not right now. So they're possibly going to force feed him the ball, give him more dominance in upcoming weeks because the strategy they're running right now isn't working. That would be the turnaround for Nico Hines, where he goes back to being a nuclear option. Now, do I believe that? Yeah, at some point this year. Do I think it's happening this week? I've seen no indication as to that happening this week. So I think Hines is the guy with the nuclear upside, but Katoa is a bit safer. But I would probably go Hines out of those two just for the upside.
And then Angela asks, Mamazelles to Preston and Humphreys to Clifford. Would you wait a week on Preston with the buy?
Yeah. Preston's a tough one. I mean, buy him for the loophole, but no, don't get Preston this week. He's got the buy. I would go back to the drawing board, and I would keep Mamazelles 100% as well. We'll do 3 more questions, and we've got to record buy, hold, sell up next.
We have a couple of questions. This is Egan a must-have.
Yes, he is. Egan is an absolute machine. Pumping out about 50 minutes, scoring around that sort of high 40s, mid 40s area. He's going to make a ton of cash. He looks awesome in real life as well. And there have been injuries to the Dragons that benefit him now too. So yeah, don't miss Egan. Must have this week.
Is Campbell still a buy, or is Fogarty and Katoa better options?
Campbell's a great option if you need wing fullback. That wing fullback definitely boosts him up. Fogarty and Gatorra good options too. I probably have Campbell ahead just because of the wing fullback, and I think he'll be the top wing fullback this year.
And then Sam Grant asks, Humphreys and Cole for Yo, Couchman, Kant, or Hudson Young?
Oh, man, I mean, I like them all. I like them all. Like, you've asked this question based on who I like. So I'd probably say, do you want to make money or do you want to guarantee points? Like, you need to pick. I think you need to pick. Look, Yo is the best average of the group over the next period of time, I would say. Couchman will make money. Cant will make money. Hudson Young is a pod who can go massive when he wants to. What appeals to you in that group? Like, do you want to make cash and save some money? Or do you want to go top dog Yo and just lock it in, don't think about it? Or do you want to go nuclear pod with Hudson Young, who can go 90 plus? That's up to you, Sam Grant.
And then last question, Horsburgh or Couchman?
Horsburgh, Couchman. Got to be Couchman. Couchman showing a ceiling that Horsburgh isn't showing right now. And there are players returning for Canberra. So I got to go Couchman there. Hey guys, that is us done and dusted for team lists. Remember, we started this one, long video, a lot of questions this week, but chaos is a ladder, as Littlefinger from Game of Thrones says. It really is a ladder, right? So last week was a tough one. Don't be disheartened by it. Take advantage. And when everyone else falters, that's when you need to be aggressive. So attack this week, grab some points, grab players that are going to crush it. Egan's a must, and then grab a player. There's ever been a week for a pod? This is it. So target those guys that you like. Question from Jacob, what's my rank? So I've been rising up the ranks. I'm down up to about 3,000 now. I was 14,000 2 weeks ago. So 14,000 into about 5,500 into 3,000 this week. Always a slow start. We rise into it. I'll be in the top 100 in about a month's time. So pencil that in. If I'm not, then I'll just lie and say I'm not. No, you're all in the league with me, so you can see it too. But yep, cheers. And cheers everyone who's saying thanks there as well. Peace out, guys. Good luck this week. I'll see you on Buy, Hold, Sell tomorrow morning.